Great.
Excellent. Tim and Weller here. So today is not quite, but coming up on Independence Day. So I thought I would cover a topic that I think gets really overlooked in this industry. For a lot of us as agents, we proceed along as we're doing our things, and we don't really think too much about the fact that we are independent contractors. See how that time difference? All right. So, as an independent contractor, what does that mean? What's the difference between that and an employee? You're in charge of your own destiny. That's good. In charge of destiny. It's a good blanket statement. What else is different? From my role, if you were an employee, I would be your boss. Since you're an independent contractor, I am your coach, advisor, mentor, whatever other word you want to use other than boss, right?
Late.
So your own, thanks, Jim. Your own boss, right? I think it's really important to understand what that means. Like we talk about, like that's the reason to get into real estate, right? You get to be your own boss, you set your own schedule, you do your own thing, you're in control of your own income. But what does it really mean? I mean, if you worked a job as you were not an independent contractor, what would you expect to have to do?
You have predetermined hours that you have to be in.
So you have predetermined hours, right? So if we're an employee over here, you have predetermined hours. Okay? And so you have predetermined hours. What else? As an employee, what would you expect? You have a boss, right? So you have accountability. To the boss.
You have a salary.
Fixed remuneration.
Fixed income?
Not necessarily.
Necessarily.
No, but I mean, but there is a base.
Base, maybe. Okay. Base. We'd say base plus bonus, right? We'll call it that. Okay. Over here, you've got all bonus. Right? What else? What else as an employee would you expect? So you've got predetermined hours, you got accountability to the boss, you got a base plus bonus. What else?
Benefits.
Benefits, okay.
Whether they be vacations, health,
Whatever, okay. Because that could include vacations, include health, 401k, all that kind of stuff, right? Okay. What else is a
advancement?
Advancement, okay.
The organization.
Excellent. So you can have advancement, promotions. How does that correlate?
And no place to go.
You're at the top, right?
or down at the bottom,
You are the top.
or the bottom.
And what about benefits? Can you do benefits as an independent contractor?
You do.
Sure, they're self-controlled, right?
So
What else? As an employee, what happens every year when you work for somebody?
Christmas party.
All right, we'll go with that. How about holiday party? Holiday and other socials, right?
Talking about evaluations.
Suppose there could be
I was going down the path of evaluation reviews.
tenure.
Reviews, annuals. You can get tenure some occasions. Although in corporate America, tenure means next to nothing now. It means that you're the most expensive employee they have. Anyway, what else?
Could be a member of a union if you're an employee.
That would keep you tenure.
Could be a union.
Or you could be working for the U.S. Postal Service. There's tenure.
I think there's 4 or 5 union people left.
Anything else? What about under accountability? What are you accountable for? Like under your review, are there specific metrics that you're measured by? You know that in a job, right?
Goals and objectives.
Job description and rubrics.
Measurable metrics. Kind of redundant, but whatever. And job description, right? You are the whatever, and your responsibilities are this, and this. And you need to meet these goals. This, and this. Right? So here's my question. How many of you want to be an employee?
The weekly paycheck would be not so bad.
Other than the weekly paycheck or bi-weekly paycheck, really, there's a lot more on this side. Now, we haven't drifted down some of this because one of the things that I think we miss as real estate agents is all of this applies to us. The difference is instead of you being accountable to the boss and having a job description written by the company, you are the company. You are the boss. You have to do all this stuff for yourself. Think about it this way. If you were going to go from being little old real estate agent to, all right, I'm going to set up a team. I'm going to have 15 agents working for me. We're going to kill the East Side. What would you have to do?
Excuse me.
You would have to set up job descriptions. You'd have to set up metrics and measurables. You'd have to set up accountability programs. Now, here's the one that always gets a lot of people. You are 100% commissioned, right?
Yeah.
But,
Actually, less than
but if you were to think about your position from a base plus bonus, benefits, and I think those are the ones, the 2 cost ones, you could factor out and figure out, okay, my business plan has to be this because this is what I need to make. You could set yourself up as a business entity of whatever sort, LLC, C Corp, S Corp, sole proprietor, whatever, and only disperse your base to yourself and cover the cost of your benefits and things, just as if you worked for another corporation, right?
Sure.
Okay? All you'd have to do is make sure that you generate enough revenue to cover your budget. For all of you that have any experience in the world, which is most of you, as employees of a company, the company has to do the exact same thing, right? We have to budget out and say, okay, if I'm going to have X number of employees with X amount of cost per employee, I got to make sure my revenues cover that. How do we do that?
us as independent.
No, as a company, how would we do that? How would we make sure that we were bringing enough of revenue to cover our employees' cost?
You have to figure out the employee's cost first.
Okay, so we've been figured out the employee cost.
Put your markup in as to what you want for gross margin.
Okay, even just to figure out to cover, right? We got to figure out what our metrics are for each employee that's generating revenue and go from there. And as an independent contractor, you're in that exact same position. You have to set to yourself, okay, what does my base need to be? What do my benefits need to be? Do I want to invest in retirement plans? Do I want to have a set number of paid vacation weeks? Because, you know, the fun part in real estate is that you go on vacation and stuff happens with your business 9 times out of 10. Do you know why that is?
She's not there to screw it up.
No, everybody thinks that. It's because right before you go on vacation, a very curious thing happens. You try to get everything organized and working perfectly so that while you're gone, everything will be smooth. And so that little boost of energy that you put in your business right before you leave, surprisingly enough, generates a boost of response. And so if you could just condition yourself to put that boost in all the time, you'd actually get a lot more business, but that's a whole other conversation. So if you wanted paid vacations, how much would that cost? What would you need to budget? What do you need to produce in order to make that happen? I mean, we can get crazy with company benefits, right? You have a company car, you have a company phone, you have a company wardrobe, you have a company, I mean, you know, sky's the limit as far as what the company can provide you. Now, there's tax ramifications to that. I'm not a CPA, so I'm not talking about that. But that's what I'm saying. There are IRS rules in place for that. But there are benefits. You can make yourself, you know, you can give yourself a fair amount of benefits as the employee of your own company. Okay? What else do we see as we look at independent contractor versus employee? What else do you notice that kind of is a shift that you might not think? It was the first thing we listed as employee.
Hours?
Predetermined hours. I will tell you, one of the biggest things that I see impact independent contractor success is whether they set themselves hours to work and consistently work X number of hours a week kind of a thing. Because more often than not, people come into real estate and they think, well, one of the cool benefits is I only work when I want to. I don't want to get up this morning, I'm tired. I'm going to go to breakfast somewhere, come back and do some laundry. Maybe by this afternoon I'll be ready to do something. Is that going to get you any business? I mean, if you worked for someone else, would that fly? No. So why does it fly when you work for you? Are you just the nicest boss ever of the most failing company in the world? You've got to set yourself. Here's the hard part. It's easy when you have somebody else breathing down your neck saying, you better do this or you're fired, right? Because what are you going to do? You either don't like the job enough to care and so you quit, or you like or need the job and so you're going to do what you need to do so you don't get fired. The biggest flaw in an independent contractor is that you won't fire yourself. There's no risk of firing yourself. You have to approach this as if, go bipolar on this. Not literally, please. But talk to your imaginary self as if you were an employee and you're the boss. What would you say to yourself? How would you reprimand yourself or congratulate yourself on what you've done or not done in the past whatever time period? If you sat down and gave yourself a review Would it be good or bad? Okay,
Give myself a raise
excellent. And so how would you do that?
and additional benefits.
And additional benefits, which means additional revenue, which means additional predetermined hours, right? But you can. That's the cool thing about being your own company. That's the cool part. Because as an employee of big company, I don't get to say when I get a raise. I don't get to call Charlotte and say, you know, I think you should double my income. She's like, well, you know, there's this bonus thing. So if you do what you're supposed to do, you can. Great. Okay. Right? Because they already have the set guidelines. If you want to change those numbers for your company, change them. You want to say to yourself, all right, you know what, instead of 5 figures, I'm going to make 6 figures this year. Excellent. Let's do it. What's it require? More effort, more sales, more revenue, right?
Predetermined hours.
Probably more hours of work.
Or more efficient work.
Or more efficient work. Both of things which we work on all the time, right? I mean, we're week 40 and we've covered everything from prospecting to listings to contracts to customer management to InTouch to everything under the sun just about. And if you've implemented it all, then you're rocking and rolling and you're truly in charge of your destiny. If you haven't, you're still in charge of your destiny. It just may not be what you want it to be. Right? So talk to me about, from your perspective, as an independent contractor. You guys have all been in the business for a period of time. Talk to me about what are some of the struggles that you've come across as an independent contractor that you think we could work through or develop or advise as your advisor.
Personally,
Yes.
it for me was finding out where I belong, because while I can do it, I don't want to be in a residential area. The part I like is the commercial side, which has its own downfalls, but I'm willing to accept those downfalls as opposed to being involved in, like, you know, you want to sell your house or whatever. I'm used to flying phone calls. That's one I don't want to make. I don't mind making the same phone call to a commercial client. So for me, it was just figuring
It
out.
was finding what your real business was, and that's important. And a lot of people, that's a very good point, because people come into this business thinking, oh, I'm going to do real estate. Well, what does that mean exactly? Because there are a lot of different approaches. I mean, I know agents that only work with investors. I know agents that only work with first-time home buyers. I know agents that only work with listings. Agents that work with commercial, residential, leasing. You know, I mean, it's all, what do you want it to be? What do you want to work on? Because if you don't have the drive and desire, there's nobody above you whipping the whip. It's just you.
Also, for me, it's recognizing the avenue that I go down from the contacts that I have, instead of thinking that this is the only place I can go with this particular contact. It's knowing that this contact could lead me to something else, and it's the networking that becomes so important, which I'm slowly figuring out. But you know, this too shall pass.
But you're getting there.
Yeah, I'll let go.
Well, I think that's a valid point, because as you're an independent contractor, because you're the boss, you're on top and everything in between, right? So you have to determine what kind of marketing strategies are you going to use, what kind of lead prospecting, you know, lead generation, what kind of business building are you going to do in order to create revenue. You know, you're in charge of revenue. In charge of revenue. And maybe something like that.
Well, you're also in charge of expenditures.
You're also in charge of expenses,
In charge of planning,
marketing.
marketing.
Market area.
There are also expenses that you may not recognize that are not,
All right, let's talk about those.
that basically where you fall in. There's a certain amount of expense that's involved with this particular office, as with every office,
Absolutely.
with, the lights, if you will.
But remember, as an independent contractor, you can go to any brokerage in the city.
Yeah, but I'm
And
just,
so you're in charge of figuring out which one
But-
best supports your business model, business plan.
but at the same time, there has to be a recognition of the fact that you and this office have expenses that are not directly, they do directly come out of the commission based upon the percentage that you take, but, everybody, well, people may suggest to themselves that this is pure profit on your part, but they don't look at the fact that, there's electricity, there's rent in this office, there's desks that you've had to buy, and all of the U&O that goes with
Absolutely.
this
And
location.
so that's kind of the fun part to me of real estate is you get to plug into, for all intents and purposes, an existing corporate structure, an existing backbone of support and network and tools and whatever for relatively minimal cost compared to having to go out and set it all up yourself, right? Think of, if you were to set up your own, you got to go find an office, you got to find some staff, you got to pay the electric, you got to furnish the office, you got to get all the paperwork, you got to make sure there's paper for the, oh yeah, you got to get a copier, and then you got to go, there's just, the number of details are somewhat infinite. And yet for us, all you have to do is join a brokerage and you've got all of those things. Well, some of those things, depending on what brokerage you join.
Well,
Blunt.
and some people, and this is my observation, and I'm a short timer, I know, but some people appear to look at those things and decide, oh, I don't need to do this and this and this. And then when you're on the other side of a transaction with them, you realize that they are trying to do it on a shoestring.
Yeah.
And it isn't going well. You can just tell from the first interaction with them that they're trying to do it alone as cheap as possible. And they're counting on you to do all the heavy lifting because they cannot do anything. Including return calls or, check.
Well, that has nothing to do with budget. That's just
Well,
purely
I know,
business.
but because they have no one to answer the phone or help them with anything, they're trying to do everything. They're not doing anything very well.
They also have no quality standards.
Yes.
Whether or not they're not returning your phone call, that should actually be a self-imposed quality that, it's professionalism that when somebody calls you or sends you a text, there should be a response that goes with that as opposed to.
I think quality standards is a very valid point. Because if you think about it, when you go work for someone else, they tell you what their quality standards are, right? If you work in a customer relationship department, you will answer the phone in less than 3 rings. You will say this when you answer the phone, and you'll smile and be happy about it, right? If you work in a customer environment, you will wear this. And so for you, you have to take into consideration those types of quality standards. What are yours? As your own company, what are your standards? What is your expectation? How quickly will you call people back? How quickly will you return any kind of message? What are you going to wear?
There is a foible to that, where it's out of your control. You may do everything right all the time, have very high quality standards, but what you get back from the other side of the phone is dismal.
You can't do
Understand.
anything about that.
But you can't fix that. You can't fix that if you're over here either, right?
Well, you would hope.
You can't.
With your client, you've got the ability to practice quality standards.
Correct.
As far as responses, it's like flashbang. And texting now, I mean, you get a text, you can get right back to them.
Some,
And they love it.
as opposed to some idiots that don't.
But if it's not your client, and if it is your client and they're not living up to your quality standards and it's not working the way you want it to work, what can you do?
Just go to you.
Yeah.
Cut them loose and move on to the next one, right? Because this is a by choice engagement. This is not a forced relationship. You are not put on the gym account. You're put on, you have the ability to work with Jim if you want. Not, you aren't told by someone else, okay, here's your account, go work this one. Yeah, but I don't like him. He's not nice. He doesn't return calls. He doesn't tell me what he really wants. He keeps changing his mind. He's not serious. It's a waste of time. Good, move on. Find another account. Because nobody's breathing down your neck to say you have to work this account.
And we've probably all done that
Oh, yeah.
at one point or another.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I know this is having some of that. I think the greatest compliment I ever got from a client is that they've called in to suggest I should go here to get this business. That blew my mind. It
Yeah.
really did.
You have a client?
Jim
Jim doesn't. Will
Jim doesn't. Will has a good client. Though.
That
It
literally.
is, and that's
blew me
huge,
away.
right? When you get a client that calls in and says, hey, I saw this, and you should really go talk to them. Or even better, they say to them, you get a call in and they say, oh yeah, I was talking to so-and-so, I know they work with you. They said I should call you. That's awesome, right? I mean, that's what we're building in this business if we have a good quality standard. But who's responsible for your quality standard? You. Who's responsible for 99.9% of everything you do? You. Now, as your broker, I'm responsible for making sure that you aren't breaking the law. And of course, we have certain company policies that we have in place.
Ethical issues.
Ethical issues and those sorts of things. But generally speaking, the way you practice your business is up to you. Because you're your own company. And if you don't approach your business as a company and say to yourself, would I fire myself? I think you're missing. Because I think there's a certain point at which you need to say to yourself, okay, if I can't do this, I shouldn't be doing this anymore. I remember my first year in the business. My story, right? It was engineering or real estate. I had to get it back into one or the other because I had to make money again. Now for me, I didn't need a ton of money, but I started, my threshold was, if I didn't make $50,000 in my first full year in real estate, I had to quit and go get an engineering job. Because I knew I could go get an engineering job making that. So I made $50,000. Because that was my goal. That was my metric. That if I wasn't willing to do that, then there was no reason for me to continue doing real estate. So you guys have to make yourself some ultimatums. Because in the corporate environment, if you're an employee, you're met with ultimatums every day, right? If you don't accomplish this today, don't come back tomorrow. If you don't accomplish this year, don't expect a raise. Be in control. Be the one that sees yourself as a business. Take the time to do the research. How many of you are incorporated?
Well, sorry. An LLC, I don't consider that.
That's a corporation.
Yeah.
Limited liability corporation, nonetheless.
That's true. Company. It's a company.
So how many of you are a company other than a sole proprietorship?
Well, I are a company.
Okay? That's pretty common in real estate. Most people run real estate as sole proprietors. Why? Now,
Cheaper.
I'm not saying there's benefit tax-wise, although there can be, towards being a corporation. I'm not saying that there's benefit expense-wise towards being a corporation, although there can be. Just as there can be being a sole proprietor. What I'm saying is if you think about it, if you incorporate and you become Hank Savage Real Estate,
And that's what it would be.
I know, that's what I said. LLC. Or full-on S Corp, right? If you become a corporation, does that do a mental shift for you? Do you start to see what you do every day differently than is, well, you know, I have a real estate license. Somebody calls me, I sell something.
I agree.
You're different though, Jim.
Very.
But I do think that that's something you should consider. Because I think if you think about it, I'm an entrepreneur. I've had many corporations over the years. And I'll tell you, the first time I got a piece of mail, having to be at my house, that had the corporation name on it, I thought to myself, whoa, wait, this is real. Like, this is an entity that exists. It's beyond me. It's not just me botzing around doing whatever. It's an actual entity. And so is there more accountability? Is there more drift into this realm of, okay, here's my goals, here's what I gotta do. I'm the one setting the rules, so they're gonna be good for me, but I still gotta make them. Just put that out there. There are some benefits, I think, liability-wise and tax-wise, to doing certain models of corporations, depending on how much revenue you plan to do. If you only plan to make like $20,000, $30,000 a year, single entity LLC for liability, everything passes through to you, yeah, probably not that big of a deal.
In this litigious society,
I understand.
whether you're making 2,000 or 200,000, there can be some liabilities that can bite you in the butt.
From a liability standpoint, yes. But from a tax standpoint, eh.
Yeah.
Now, if you're making $200,000-$300,000 and you have it coming through another entity, there can definitely be some ways to save taxes on that, depending on you and the rest of your life, obviously. So take the time, research, figure out what's best for you. What should you do? And think to yourself, if I opened up a company, would it make me look at it differently? Would I approach the business differently if I was a corporation than I do just as me flitting around doing real estate?
Flitting.
Flitting, yes.
You flip.
Well, and you know, if you didn't want to go as far as the LLC, you could do a DBA and establish a business name, and then you have a business, and you can have business checks and.
Because ultimately you are operating a business, whether you want to call it a separate business or not, as a sole proprietor, as a self-employed you,
Yeah.
under your name. Now, if you want to do a DBA or you want to do, you know, depending on the ramifications of what you want to do, sure. But I do think there's something to be said of making a business entity and distinguishing it from just you. Because I think that's something that changes the mindset, changes the approach. Agree? Disagree? Crazy? Am I just
I can see that.
losing my mind?
Yes. Well,
Yes.
yes.
Two requests.
Sorry, separate
I
questions.
don't disagree, but yes, you are losing your mind.
I think it gives you a sense of formality, and I think that's a good thing, because I do think it's easy to view independent contractor as kind of in a boat adrift, you know, wherever you go, you go. And I think by imposing standards, hours, plans, you are putting some formality around it that I think can help you stay on course and not be accepting of just wherever you may wind up because you actually have an objective. So, I mean, I can see that.
Okay. All right. Any other conversation, or are we done? I mean, I'm good. I'm tapped out.
It's 11 o'clock.
Is it?
Perfectly done. Well, thank you guys for coming. I hope you gained something from it today.
Always
And,
do.
you know, I look forward to having deeper conversations about the incorporation thing.